Hello there, everyone, and welcome to Torpedo League Super Formula. We're here for round 7 at the Australian Grand Prix. And so first and foremost, I apologize for streaming so late at night and so long after the previous stream. I've been extremely inconsistent with these, both in terms of how often I stream them and how late I stream them, although luckily I've, so far gotten just about I've gotten every race. All that's left that has happened is round 8. But, we're here for the Australian Grand Prix. I, again, apologize for the delay and for streaming this so late at night, but I hope that's alright. We're here for the Australian Grand Prix, as I said. We're at Mount Panorama. It's a brilliant circuit built into the side of a mountain, hence the name Mount Panorama. It's an iconic real-world circuit that hosts the Bathurst 1000, I believe. But we're not here in V8 supercars like those guys. We're here in Super Formula cars. So, it was debutant. So that's actually incorrect. Spicy is on pole, and F1 Mork is second. That's just confusing. But yeah, so Spicy should be on pole, but because the way the grid is built here, it doesn't say he is. Here, lights are starting to go out, and it's lights out. We are underway in Australia, Mount Panorama. It's a good start for Spicy. Immediately pulls ahead of F1 Mork, who his teammate is not going to go for it. He actually nearly spins. Oh, and that's Wiley Pips at the back spinning. Debutant, he is in a fast Formula livery. He's actually reserving for CRL though, as is Jackson 55F1. But F1 Mork is taking the lead down the straight. Spicy pulls in behind him. After turn 2, Jackson's going to go for it on Yarnall here. Pops the barrier a little, can't make anything there. Charlie, the new Nexus Esports driver, getting ahead of Bunnies, who actually spins, speaking of which. Wiley's Pips does not look like he'll catch him from that spin there. But back up to the front, we have Spicy, who's somehow gotten back in front through this tight section here. Yarnall's going to go for it on Spicy, though. Nothing he can do, and Spicy's gotten back ahead. How has he done that? That's impressive. I don't know how he's done that. As we are going to switch this all to the correct stuff. Okay, and so that is Spicy in front. F1 Mork. Oh, just about everyone tapping the wall there, actually. Bunny's falling quite far back with Wiley's Pips, unfortunately. It'll be a recovery drive for them if they can get back into the field. But Spicy now, comfortably leading the way. So he breaks for the chicane right near the end of the lap. Makes it comfortably. Benelux Esports duo, Yarnall and F1 Mork, second and third. Yarnall going defensive on reserve, Jackson 55F1. He's not going to be relenting his charge though. As we've also got Smilsy in 5th, building up a good gap to Charlie MG06 and C135S, who have probably an even larger gap to Bunnies, and Wiley's Pips in last. So this is the first time we've had a whole 9 drivers, so more than 8, and 8th is the final position that gets points, so as it stands, there will be one driver in this race who does not get points. But Benelux duo are F1 Mork and Yarnall are second and third, first and second in the standings as well, going into this race. CRL, pointless at the moment. As long as Jackson and Wiley's Pips both finish, they won't be pointless anymore. As Smilsy goes purple, I know it's just second lap, so everyone should be doing that. Spicy for Vanis Esports Mugen, pulling out a good lead to the Benelux corner. CRL Reserve, Jackson Ducky Racing, doing what they need at the moment to pull up on Nexus Esports in the championship. with their only driver who's currently driving. Actually, I'm going to cut off that because Jackson's going around the outside of Yarnall. Thinks better of it in the end. It looks like F1 Works struggling a little bit with track limits there. That's going to put his teammate and Jackson right on the back of him, as well as Smilsy, and just elongate the lead that Spicy has already built up. So on lap 3, beginning of lap 3, F1 Works already a sizable gap behind Spicy, 3 seconds slower on that lap almost. It looks like Jackson's using the slipstream. He's going to go for it maybe on Yarnall into turn 2. Doesn't in the end. Turn 2 is a very, really fast uphill right-hander. It's blind. It's a blind corner. We are actually right on board with the bunnies for it. So as you can see, it's a blind corner. Very quick. Admittedly, I've seen bunnies themselves navigate it better than that, but it wasn't bad. It was good for showcasing that just how blind the corner it is, and really it is a bravery corner, as well as most corners on the circuit. They're all really just, you have to be brave and make it through. So they're going through the downhill bit now. After the peak of the mountain, we'll watch Charlie here with the 7/10 behind him, navigating this section. This corner is very tricky. Breaking through here is hard. Sudden downhill slope. Bunny seems to be catching up to Charlie, although not a ton. Wiley's Pips right on the back of Bunny. Bunny's having barely used any overtake. Wiley's Pips not having used a ton, but a little bit. Looks like Charlie hasn't used any at all. C1 using up a lot of his already. Coming on to lap 4. Coming up to lap 4, he's used more than a quarter. Smilsy's barely used any. Jackson's used a bit more. He's going to go for it on Yarnall too. For P3, it's into turn 1 on lap 4. Jackson has taken the final step on the podium. Benelux driver Yarnall is only a couple points ahead of Bunnies in the championship, but as it stands, it'll become a bigger gap, but he'll want to get past Jackson to make it an even bigger gap. Can he reclaim the podium? He cannot at the moment. Smilsy's looking to get involved here for Ducky Racing. Jackson looked a little bit wide there, but he seems okay. Actually, as he hits the barrier, so does Yarnall, and Smilsy sneaks past one, sneaks past 2 of them. So Smilsy suddenly from 5th to 3rd in one corner, on the exit of one corner. F1 Work, though, has really benefited from all these battling from those 3, and has pulled away a lot. It was side by side with Yarnall and Jackson. Jackson backs out. Smart idea from him. Contact would not be optimal at this stage in the race. Speaking of contact, F1 Work batters the wall there. So does Smilsy. So does Yarnall. Oh, and Yarnall spins. Yarnall spins. So that is that's terrible for the Belgian. That lets C1 by now. He's struggling to get it going. Charlie now by. Wiley's Pips, I missed that. He's gotten Bunnies. Wiley's Pips. Oh, it's Bunnies actually gets Wiley's Pips as they both get Yarnall there. So Yarnall sent right down the field after a bit of a half spin, then with contact from Jackson or full spin, wearing out his super soft tires with that very badly. He's well down the grid now. He'll be needing to make a significant charge to get back into the points. As you see though, Wiley's Pips, you could see him just sort of being overtaken by Bunny right as they went by Yarnall. It looked like Wiley's Pips may have been a bit more cautious overtaking the spun Belgian. But yeah, so Wiley's Pips using a lot more overtake than Bunny's, but Bunny's certainly not well, yeah, he's conserving his overtake, I'd say. And his tires don't seem too bad. He is starting on the softs. Yarnall started on the super softs. Bunnies and Wiley's Pips on the softs, as well as Charlie. C1, though, started on the super softs, has less than half of his overtake left. He's using that up very quickly. Jackson started on the softs, as did Smilsy. F1 Work and Spicy started on the super softs. So Spicy, debuting in this league, the Swedish driver, is absolutely dominating. His teammate, who won last week, or the previous round, Tactic Alpha not showing up today, but with Spicy showing up, it looks like Fantasy Sports Mugen could take their second win in a row. F1 Mork navigating this chicane a bit scruffy, but makes it through alright. Smilsy and Jackson are trying to catch him. Jackson is clearly struggling with that chicane a little. C1 seems to be okay with it. Let's see how Charlie navigates it. Looks like a bit of a lockup possibly there. He makes it comfortably. So does Bunny. He's using a bit more curb than his teammate though. Wiley's Pip's using a lot of curb and a bit of grass while he's at it. Yarnall taking it very comfortably. Yarnall, I'd imagine, will be catching the guys in front of him very soon. You don't get second in the championship by being slow, so I think he's proven time and time again in this season that he's very quick. I think we can expect to see a recovery drive from this guy. Belgian for Benelux Esports. Moving up to the front of the grid though again, we have Spicy with a humongous gap back to F1 Morik. Spicy hits the peak of the hill. F1 Morik still rounding some of these twisty sections now. Goes past the park up there. Now he hits the top of the hill. Well behind Spicy. Smilsy hits the top now, followed by Jackson. These two Brits charging after the Dutchman, who is leading the championship with a significant margin. He does not have the opportunity to win the championship in this round. If things go right from this round, he might have the chance to do so next round. I'm not entirely certain. So C1, a comfortable distance ahead of Charlie. C1 into his last quarter of overtake. You can see the red light on the top of his airbox there. When that's red, it means they have less than a quarter left. When it's green, it means they have more than a quarter left. When it's flashing, it means they're using it. You can also see the little light on the back of their car. If that flashes, you can see it on Bunny's car there. It's not flashing, but if it flashes, the light on the back of his car means he's using overtake. It seems Bunny's and Charlie's headlights are on. These cars don't have headlights though. That looks like a mistake from Charlie. Yeah, it looks like you can see the dirt on his tires, which he's weaving to try and get off. Looks like he's definitely had a trip through the gravel on the exit of turn 1. He's a second off of his best time, so I'd definitely say he has taken a trip through the gravel. Not optimal for the Brit. That's putting his Nexus Esports teammate on the back. But Bunnies has been racing all season. He knows what he's doing. He raced all but one race last season, and he's raced every race so far this season. He's not going to make silly mistakes, presumably. He knows what he's doing in this league. So I'd imagine, even with the dirty air, he should be able to stick with Charlie, perhaps overtake him. He had a half spin at the start of the race, so it would be advisable for him to be careful. He won't want to dive bomb Charlie. He is his teammate after all. Wiley's Pips is falling off the back of them a little. I think he's struggling with the dirty air. You can see a bit of dirt on Yarnall's tires. Presumably that means he's been through the gravel recently. Moving back up the field though to the Nexus Esports drivers, side by side. Charlie pulls well ahead into the collision zone. So the two of these guys, nose to tail. This is the first time, not the first time two Nexus Esports drivers have raced this season, but as it stands, it's looking like it might be the first time they both finish. Although, of course, we are only just, we're not even halfway through the race yet, so we can't say for certain, but we hope that neither of them lag out this time, like Bunny's old teammate was doing at the start of the season before he left. So Spicy, even longer gap, an even larger gap to F1 Morik now. It's esports team, CRL, although using, So CRL reserve, actually. So this is a very strong performance for Jackson on his debut. Of course, just racing as a reserve for Fast Formula, or not Fast Formula, sorry, for CRL, using a Fast Formula livery. I'm going to try and remind you every once in a while so you don't wonder what team that is, because that is CRL. But Ducky Racing driver Smilsy now gonna go around the outside, maybe inside? No, thinks better of it. As Spicy is into the pits. It's a tricky pit entry. We'll see if either of these guys pit now. They do not. Will C1 be pitting? C1 is out of overtake, and you can see that there. The light on the top of the airbox. There is no light anymore, so that means he is out. Spicy comes out of the pits on soft tires. F1 Mark is ahead of Spicy. Jackson and Smilsy are behind, though, so Spicy on fresh softs should pull away from these two. Charlie still holding up his Canadian teammate. Number 99 there. Oh, is Yarnell pits. I apologize for missing that. I really wanted to show you the pit entry. It's quite an interesting one. But, yeah, so we've got F1 Work now on oldish super softs. They're 9 laps old, but he's managed them very well. The fresh softs for Spicy are probably allowing him to catch up. It's hard to gauge the gap at the moment, though. Spicy taps the wall. Jackson, ooh, just about keeping the car through there. That was pretty close. I wouldn't want to do that again. Smilsy taps the wall. C1 comfortably driving along there. Still the Nexus Esports drive base, no change in position. Bunny's making some pretty bad mistakes there. So maybe it's not really that much of a surprise there's been no change in positions yet. Yarno, of course, did just pit. He's not really that far behind. His pits might need to pit soon. He and Bunnies are extremely similar on tire wear, though Bunnies seems to have a tiny bit more on his rear left, I should say. Let's see, F1 Work, Spicy, Jackson, and Smilsy. None of them pit. We'll see one pit. He's coming into the chicane now. Let's see, will he pit? Yes, he will. You can see here it's a bit of an odd chicane, and C1 messes it up. I don't blame him though. Charlie, Bunnies, and Why Always Pips stay out. Why Always Pips very wide in the final corner though. Using some overtake there, you can see the lights flashing. Let's go back up to the front. Spicy is right on the back of F1 Work. I wonder if F1 Work will be trying to hold him up, back him into Jackson. Ooh, Jackson and Smilsy. Jackson, speaking of which, nearly spinning there. As C1 goes on to super softs. That's not right. I think he went on to softs. Yeah, Spicy. I wonder if F1 Mark will be aiming to hold Spicy up, back him into Jackson and Smilsy, as well as keeping him with dirty air, maybe trying to wear out his tires a little so that later in the race he has a better chance of catching him. Never know. But this could be a move here from Spicy. We're going to go back quickly just to make sure Charlie is another threat from Bunnies. He's not. But here comes Spicy, down the inside for the race lead. He comfortably takes it even before the right-hand kink, before the chicane. F1 Work's going to look it down the inside, doesn't quite go for it in the end, though. F1 Work fighting for a championship here. Yarno and Bunnies going into this round, I believe, are the only ones who can fight for it, although I may be mistaken. As Mork does pit. So F1 Work, as soon as he's overtaken by Spicy, does go into the pits, as does Jackson. Will Smilsy? Smilsy does not go into the pits. Let's see, Bunnies, Charlie's behind Why Always Pips and Bunnies now. Charlie must have made a really big mistake. I'm so sorry for missing that. I'd imagine that was probably on... Ooh, as that's all three of them there into the pits. Oh, Charlie hits the barrier. That's not optimal for the Nexus driver. He makes it into the pits in the end, though. C1 here with 2.8 seconds of time penalties. That's not great for him. Let's see how he... where three drivers who just pitted come out in comparison to him. Bunnies exiting the pit box now. C1 exiting turn 1. So Bunnies comes, that's C1. You wanna let me spectate Bunnies? And why always Pips and Charlie, maybe? There we go. That is Bunnies. He has 4.5 seconds of time penalty suddenly. No idea how he got that. But he's behind C1 with a sizable gap. Why always Pips has gotten away from Charlie a lot since Charlie made that mistake entering the pits. Yarnall is not far behind this trio, though. Actually, he's not far behind any of these four. Damn, 26th May was a nice-ish day. Not what I thought I'd be watching at 2:30 a.m., but sure, why not? What the hell was May 26th? Is that when this race happened or something? Anyways, oh, that Smillsy well off trying to go into the pits. He's made a huge mistake there that'll cost him a lot of time to Jackson, who he's fighting with. And yeah, Evan, I didn't expect you to be watching this at 2:30 either. So, Spicy, though, exits this line corner. I think next lap, if I can remember to, I'm going to ride on board with him for a lap of this circuit. Smillsy's finally made it to his pit box. You can see his dirty tires there. You can also see Bunnies, somehow with 4 seconds of time penalty still. Not far, serves a little bit of them. Not far behind C1, he's certainly catching them relatively quickly. Yeah. Ghost and Evan, you guys should probably sleep, but I'm not complaining. Nice having spectators, but yeah, the gap here is closing a lot between Why Always Pips and Bunnies, as well as Bunnies and C1. C1 not serving his penalties as quickly as he'd like. He's still got 2.1 seconds since he pitted. 3.6 seconds for Bunnies. May as well round that up to 3.7 though. Why Always Pips, Charlie, and Yarnall do not have any penalties though. Spicy, we will go on board with him in a moment. Bunny is still quite far off. So we're gonna ride on board with Spicy. So he's starting his lap now. A good exit from the final corner into turn 1. It's hard braking, but you want to maximize the exit here because it's a long distance down to turn 2. He gets a little bit of grass on his front right tire. That won't be optimal. But it still seems to have a pretty decent exit. Up to turn 2, a very brave blind corner. Perhaps not taking it with as much bravery as he could, but you don't want to throw away the lead that you have when it's this big. So lap 13 here, turns 3 and 4, those are fun ones to do. 3 is just about flat out, but it's difficult breaking into turn 4 if you try to take it flat out. But up this up and downhill bit here, brave left-handers, this is just about flat out, although it's not in other cars. Braking hard through this section, just about one of the only places you can corner cut back there. Spicy does a good job to avoid doing so though. Now into this hard downhill braking. It's a tough braking zone, it's a blind entry, and it's a downhill braking zone, which makes it all the more tough to get through. So using some overtake down this long straight now, the longest straight on the track, especially if you include this little kink that he's going through here. Braking hard at in between 150 meters, just about making the chicane, using a bit of curb there. Saw Bunnies using the curb there a little bit at the start of the race, but braking hard into the last corner. Maybe could have gotten it rotated a little better. He did end up with a little bit in the grass though. But a 141.635 is the lap time for Spicy. That's not a bad lap at all. So we got sorry I missed that, but Why Always Pips pulled something on both Charlie and Bunnies. No, Bunnies is, I don't know, that's a bit of a mess. It's Charlie and Yarnall both around there. Yarnall, we've seen Yarnall crashing there already this race. And Charlie, now down in last place. It's unfortunate for him. The new Nexus driver was impressing. I think it's fair to say he still is. But Bunnies, Wyo's Pips, and Charlie had all gotten C1. Oh, that's going to be down the inside for Bunnies. Can he make it? No, not quite. Well, it just about does. Let's see if he can keep it. He's on the inside for turn 1. Heavy braking. He hits the curb. Oh, and he spins. He spins. Bunny's around with a perfect 360 in the end, but that's not going to be good for his tires or his lap time. He does serve lots of his penalty during that, though, so that's a bit of an upside. Wyo's Pips, though, now comfortably ahead of him, though. C1 has caught up a little bit through that mistake. Yarnell and Charlie will be probably looking to help his Nexus Esports teammate in his fight against Yarnell in the championship. He'll be wanting to get ahead of Yarnell for himself and for his teammate and for his team. Bunny's out in 6th, still 0.2 of a time penalty. Still don't know how he got so much of a penalty exiting the pits, but he did. Smilsy is very comfortably ahead of Wyo's Pips, but Jackson is well ahead of Smilsy. F1 Mork, not too far ahead of Jackson, but definitely a noticeable gap. And Spicy is just absolutely dominating this race, the same way his teammate Tactic Alpha did last time out at Belgium. Let's see if Bunnies can remount his charge on Wyo's Pips. Wyo's Pips would have gotten ahead of him at some point, presumably around the same time Bunnies got ahead of C1. I suspect C1 might have made a mistake because most people had gotten by him before Yarnell and Charlie had that incident. And Bunnies is going to go for it on Wyo's Pips again into the last corner. This time he's comfortably ahead into the braking zone. So he's got him there. He's got much more overtake than Wyo's Pips though. Wyo's Pips into his last quarter. I don't know why he doesn't have a red light there. Oh, there we go, now it's red. It's red now. He's using some overtake. He's going to try and go for it on Bunnies. Down the inside, coming up to turn 2. Wyo's Pips has gotten off his overtake, but he's still got the run. He's ahead into turn 2. Will Bunnies brave it out around the outside? He does, but he makes a mistake, and that allows Wyo's Pips to pass. C1, Yarnell, and Charlie are all very close together now. Smaller gap between Charlie and Yarnell than it is between Yarnell and C1 though. Bunnies is going to want to go for something on Wyo's Pips. Jackson and F1 Work, still a decent gap, but I'd say it's closing. Spicy is well in the lead still though. As Bunnies is right on the back of Wyo's Pips, this is easily our closest battle as it stands. Although Yarnell, C1, and Charlie are all very close together. Charlie finally eradicating that last little bit of his penalty. Yarnell, C1, Bunnies. We're going to see him get the run on Wyo's Pips. Bunnies not using any overtake yet, so he's probably not looking to get the overtake this lap, or down the straight at least. Yarnell has the red light on top of his airbox. I wonder if Charlie has an overtake button, because he still hasn't used any. Yarnell is going to go for defensive. No, it doesn't really bother. Yarnell and Charlie are well off the circuit now. That's a bit of an illegal overtake from Charlie. It looks like Yarnell might get him back, so it might be okay in the end. He does not. That is a position that he probably should give back. As moving up to further up, Spicy, amazingly far out in front. F1 Merc in second, ever-closing gap to Jackson. Smilsy was right on the back of this battle at one point, but he's not anymore. Wyo's Pips and Bunnies here. As Charlie and C1 both sort of in the barriers there. Yarnell gets a big knock of oversteer. He nearly gets by. I do apologize for the pause there. And also goes fired up. Yeah. It's too bad you have to... It's too bad you can't go to sleep until 4 a.m. Yeah. Oh, and Jackson has a 9/10 time penalty. That will not help him in his fight against F1 Moore. Let's see, Wyo's Pips and Bunnies here. on the third last lap. Spicy's onto the last lap. Oh, that's someone spinning around. Spicy's spun around. So Spicy's spun round, and yet the gap is so humongous to F1 Moore that he's not even going to get caught. F1 Moore has more overtake than Jackson, and less of a penalty, because he doesn't have any at all. Is Charlie's going to go down the inside of C1? It's a bit of a sense. C1 spins around a bit. Good save from C1. Not a great move from Charlie, but got him the position in the end. Could have been a bit cleaner. So, wow. The overtake difference between Wiley's Pips and Bunny's is humongous. Bunny's has gotten himself. Bunny's now has less than 3/4 left. He's finally using his overtake a bit more. He and F1 Moore have been extremely conservative of it, and I don't think Charlie actually has a button bound to use his overtake. So these two, big step up over steer for both Wiley's Pips and Bunny's there. Wiley's Pips' tires are a little bit better than Bunny's. Not decisively though, but you can see the difference in the color on the airbox. The red light does mean Wiley's Pips does not have much left as Bunny takes a trip through the grass and still is improving on his lap. So he's gonna go for it into the next straight. Is what we await to see. I worded that really badly. As he uses some overtakes, so it might be the lap that he wants to get by. It is the second last lap. It's Spicy's final lap. It's F1 Moore's final lap. It's Jackson's final lap. Jackson is less of a penalty, but at the end of the race, both of those will be rounded up to a second at this rate, and Jackson spins round on the final lap, dashing his chances of getting F1 Moore. C1 is a sizable distance behind Yarnall. I'd say Yarnall's got P8. I'd say the only battle we really need to watch for now is Bunny's and Wiley's Pips coming onto the final lap. Bunny's has much more overtake than Wiley's Pips. Wiley's Pips is going to use some to try and defend down the straight. Bunny's is going to use some to try and overtake. Wiley's Pips isn't using any anymore. Bunny's sort of off and on. Bunny's 3 times up on his fastest lap, goes to the inside, down the inside of turn 2. That's a move for P5, but it's a good move for P5. So that is Wiley's Pips down to 6th. Hits the barriers though. Wiley's Pips, I would not rule out as a possible P5 here, as he's actually right on the back of Bunny's. Bunny's will probably save his overtake until the final straight to make sure he can defend. We move up to Spicy, coming across the line to win the Australian Grand Prix. It's his debut, and it's his win in round 7 at Mount Panorama. F1 Moore is next. As we go back to these two, they're not quite an overtaking point yet. F1 Moore comes across the line P2 for Benelux Esports. P3 for CRL reserve driver. Jackson 55 F1 takes a podium for CRL to score them their first points of the season. Smilsey serves his penalty going down the last straight, takes P4 for Ducky Racing. P5 looks to be Bunny's as he uses lots of overtakes just to keep himself ahead of Wiley's Pips, who has a penalty. Bunny's coming up to the final corner now. Is it going to be a dive bomb from Wiley's Pips? No, it's not. Wiley's Pips stays sensible, doesn't overtake. Bunny's takes P5 for Nexus Esports. P6 for CRL, for another reserve driver for CRL, Wiley's Pips. P7 will go to Nexus Esports driver Charlie in his debut race. And it's the first time that both Nexus drivers have finished a race this season. Yarnall takes the final point scoring position for Benelux, and P9 for C1 in Porsche. So that is that. P1 for Spicy. Congratulations to the Vanis Esports Mugen driver. Probably butchered that the last part of that team name, so I do apologize for that, but who knows. Yeah, congratulations to Spicy. Good job to F1 Moore on the podium for Benelux, and of course a fantastic job by reserves, both racing for CRL. Why Always Pips, and Jackson. Jackson, of course, getting a podium for the team. That'll be their first points of the season, meaning every team will have now scored points. Congratulations to Charlie as well on his good result on his first race in the league. Racing for Nexus Esports is the first time they get both drivers to finish a race. I don't know how to word that, but also, first time they both get points and first time they've both finished. But yeah, thank you to everyone who watched, especially the people who commented. Much appreciated from Ghostfired Up and Evan. But yeah, thank you for watching, and we will see you next time. I will try to commentate the Croatian Grand Prix very soon, but if you remember to join in tomorrow, Torpedo League F2 should have the Bahrain Grand Prix.